Greetings, my friends. Welcome to another podcast from Rebel Moon. Okay, guys, today I want to do something a little bit different because I've been promising it for ages and I keep getting backtracked. So today I want to step outside human affairs and all the chaotic media propaganda which obviously is trying to stir up another war in the Middle East, start with Afghanistan. So let's take a break from all that media hoo-ha. So I can keep this promise, okay? Get it out the way, if you will. So today I will finally get round to updating some predictions from the Uncanny Book of Predictions, as it's being called. I'm not sure about the uncanny bit, because uncanny means strange or mysterious, and especially in an unsettling way. Well, of course, some things in the future are indeed unsettling, because it's all part of life on Earth, so don't fash yourself. In which case, you have to exercise freedom of choice to decide if you want some kind of clue about what may lie ahead in the future, or whether you prefer to cross that bridge when you reach it. And then again, I doubt anyone can say that life on planet Earth, especially over the past 18 months or so, hasn't been unsettling for most people, because it has. And as for uncanny, well, I suppose we could say that about some of the more out there predictions and forewarnings that I've made. And those, my friends, are the ones which are deemed impossible or extremely unlikely to happen by the great and mighty powerful sages and seers of Oz who frequent the internet these days. By the way, I'm not affiliated to any of them, nor is Babason. We have our own kind of circles, if you will, and a lot of them are not present on the internet. So, you know, what we're talking about here is those that claim to practice precognition, but they seem shy and scared or reluctant to warn us about some things that they claim they know, and we only find out they know after the event. And after all, the game is about giving a forewarning about anything nasty that may lie ahead. Because if you can see it and you see that manifesting, you can avoid it, whereas everybody else walks straight into it with their eyes closed. So remember, to be forewarned is to be forearmed, which gives you the edge over those who get caught short by so-called unforeseen events. However, since this prediction handbook was released, which was back in 2019 in preparation for 2020, some of those out there impossible to happen predictions have indeed happened. And like, for instance, my vague warning about a mystery virus, which is not as vague now as it was back then. And cast your mind back, that was the first given media name for it. They called it a mystery virus. And then it was hyped as corona, which eventually morphed into the COVID, which has now morphed into the Delta variant, because they can't be bothered making all the different things up. So everything's Delta variant now, which coincidentally is the same name as Camp Delta, the American detainment camp in Guantanamo Bay. So you can make your own connection there, because that's where all these fools are getting taken to when they're arrested. So it makes you wonder if this Delta is a warning to the White Hats to say, we're going to keep doing this, until you close it. And we already know that Adam Schiff, little blinker, he's asking for Guantanamo Bay to be closed down a couple of months ago. No, don't send me there. Let's close it down so you can't send me. I tell you, they're idiots. Anyway, make your own connection on that. Aside from that, the mystery virus wasn't as vague as we hoped, unfortunately. The rest is history. Although it's not quite over at this point in time, guys. Now, before we get down to business, here's the deal. This handbook, if you haven't got it yet, it's only 35 pages long. It's not a big drawn out, fluffed up thing. 35 pages, but it's crammed with about 130 predictions, no nonsense. And that spans a timeline from 2020 to 2022 AD next year. So it's kind of halfway through its life, kind of. And just a heads up that you will not find an equivalent of this anywhere else on the internet. And nevertheless, I believe the time is right to re-release it to the public now that we've got some of these big ones under the belt, okay? And we'll get it out to the public again before the next surge of major events that are going to change this world for a very long time. It's best to get an inkling of what might happen, and in this book probably will happen. Although, right, it's halfway through, but I'll tell you what, there's plenty of juice left in its tank, and so what we've done is reduce the price to half. We think that's fair. So it's quite cheap. It's cheap as chips now. So those of you who have recently bought the prediction, there's been a few of you, you've all been refunded. You should get back that back today. You've been refunded the difference from the original price. Okay. Which is only fair because you didn't know. If you'd have known this was coming, then, you know, you would have got it for the price we're putting at now. And I also hope you guys out there who haven't got it will support this platform by buying it. So you can kind of make a donation in a way in the form of buying a copy, because it's only £2.50, my friends. £2.50. It's peanuts. That's about $3.40 in American. So it's as cheap as chips, but every little helps to keep this thing going. And not only that, it encourages me to carry on doing what I'm doing for you. And it lets me know that I'm not wasting my time producing this kind of content, which, as you know, is mostly frowned upon by big tech these days. So it's getting harder to find, at least for the time being. Hint, hint. Anyhow, I'll cover the kings of Silicon Valley in this podcast. So guys, without further ado, let's get stuck in, shall we? And just a reminder that most future forecasters don't fash themselves. In other words, they don't bother themselves with timelines these days. They don't worry about them. And when they do, they're usually vague, like spring, summer, winter, and so on, or the first part of the year, or the second part of the year. Now, please do not use that as a slur, because there are many genuine psychics and seers out there that have been struggling with these timelines for some years now, including me. There's nobody's exempt. And we don't know, maybe it's magnetic flux or whatever. We don't know what it is, but a lot of them it just gets blurry. However, as you know, I am old school, so I still like to take a crack at timelines to try and get some more accuracy. And indeed, sometimes I nail them, sometimes I don't. So don't take them as gospel, because after all, we are covering a few years in this book. So if I say something about a month, for instance, which didn't happen in 2020, you simply carry that prediction forward to 2021. If it hasn't happened by then carry it forward to 2022. Because you'll see about 85% of this book fulfilled by the time we get to end of 2022. Now, I am going to cherry pick. Like I said, there's 130 odd, it's about 130 predictions here, so obviously can't go through them all. So we're going to start here. We're going to go on to page 5. This is about California drought worsens. I think this one I carried forward. It starts like this. A decade ago, I saw a grim future for California with growing water problems. The state did enter a phase of water shortages, but the problem remains. In 2020, the situation intensifies as a serious drought hits in spring and around the early summer months, but it'll continue to worsen throughout the year. And at some point, water has to be shipped in due to concern over contaminated water supplies. That's for California, guys. I'm doing this because, as you know, I used to live over there. I spent about 7 years of my life on and off in America. The next one, Demise of California, bankrupt. I previously warned about rolling power cuts across parts of the USA, but the one to watch is California. The power outage problems seem to get worse there, so there'll be a record number in 2020 while political upheaval escalates, leaving the state in shambles and possibly bankrupted. Just want to give you one more, California, because a lot of these stuff has basically happened, but it's still ongoing, if you know what I mean. California, new exodus. This was an old prediction that became fulfilled, but the wave is starting again. This is about people leaving. Some high-profile people have decided to leave California because of the increasing instability and social decline. I see British actors in Hollywood returning to the UK as the dream factory turns into living nightmare. And also, I've put a warning here about a seismic swarm activity plays a big part in their decisions. Now, we have had these swarms, guys, but they are just precursors. I think as we get further into this year, I do think California is in for a few big shakes. Let's go to page 6. This is about New York. This is New York Eastern Seaboard. The geographical location of New York on the east coast of America has served a good example regarding my freak weather warnings. A cycle that is not showing any signs of easing off. Weather-wise, 2020 AD will be an intense one for the eastern seaboard in general, with New York suffering weather-related problems, including power outages. And I've got another one as well, like see New York below. Right, let's just cover that one. Yeah, we've seen floods there, things like that. We know where New York is not an earthquake zone, but I have a feeling there is something going to go on there. I've brought this forward, by the way. This is not a new prediction. I used to sometimes, you get a timeline wrong. Like I said, you just got to bring it forward. Other past predictions, you can cancel them. If they did happen, they're not likely to happen now. But some of these kind of major ones, you can't just dismiss them. So the next one is New York and East Coast rattled by quakes. Although this region is not seismically active, it is riddled with a system of fault lines that stand a very good chance of disturbance as seismic activity across the globe kicks into action. Remember, we're not just talking about New York here. We'll get on to the rest in a minute. Seismic activity in this zone is very rare, but not non-existent as most people think. New York, listen to this, guys. It has had a quake before. A lot of people don't know this, but New York has been hit by a 5-point earthquake in the past. That was about 130 odd years ago, back in 1884. And scientists claim they happen every 100 years in this area. So if we're correct, the New York zone is way overdue for a 7-pointer, not 9-pointer for crying out loud. Now, just a quick heads up, a stronger magnitude like a 7-point quake or higher would wreak havoc, building damage and collapse to disruption of public services, utilities. I'm adding this warning because I expect increased seismic activity around the globe in 2020. It will awaken dormant volcanoes, especially undersea ones, as the tectonic plates making up the ring of fire begin to clash and collide. Such unusual heightened activity can easily trigger sleeping fault lines around the world, including that one in New York, okay? Now, if you look, don't forget, this was 2019, 2020. We have had lots and lots of earthquakes, and as you've seen, lots of volcanoes spouting off. I've also put a warning here in New York, East Coast power outages, where we've had these before, but not on the scale that I kind of saw. So I'll just read you this one. Heavy winter storms, intense summer storms and heat waves reaching 90 to 100 Fahrenheit. Plus, and they cause widespread disruption, especially with public transport. I don't know if you can make sense out of this, or whether this has happened. But we have seen that freak weather going all across America. And we have seen the East Coast getting hit by some weird stuff. Now let me carry on. Large swathes of big cities like New York can expect rolling blackouts. Some power cuts may not be weather related and could be connected to political unrest. Next, yet another record-breaking tornado season, which will hopefully peak next year. I think that's already passed, but again, this is no time to write weather anomalies off, all right? We're just hoping that it's over, because it did get, you remember, it got ripped, I think Kansas, something like 17 tornadoes in a few days. That was some time ago. Anyways, carry on here. New Yorkers in 2020 will experience the most intense weather so far. But this may also be the year it peaks and hopefully begins to subside and start to stabilise in 2021. Well, as you know, I basically have got that wrong, because they are getting battered today as I speak with Hurricane Henry, or Tropical Storm Henry or something. That's going to smash into Long Island and then eventually up to New England. And I think it's the first kind of storm that's hit New England in over 100 years. So can you see what I mean? We're at a weird time. The Earth is reacting to something. Right, let's jump forward. We're going to jump forward to page 9. And on page 9, I answered if Britain will ever leave the EU. Because as everybody knows, after 5 years, nothing was happening. Nothing was happening. So here's the prediction. Will Britain leave the EU? Will the UK exit the EU proper? Yes. Yes, it will, but desperate EU entities will try to sabotage it again. Does that sound familiar, guys? God, they've never stopped. I mean, I wish I could have put a bit more about that. But anyways, I put there does seem to be some new attempt to delay it again, brewing somewhere, but it hasn't been thought out properly, and the patience of the British public will be underestimated, as the architects will discover. The British stiff upper lip attitude has worn too thin, and the government will have to capitulate. Well, after 5 years it did do, as we know, and they brought Boris Johnson in, and it's still ongoing, That's why you get a lot of Brexiteers supporting Trump. They're all on your side, guys, because we want freedom as well, and we're in a war with Europe, Nazi Europe at the moment. Not Nazi Europe, we've got a lot of friends there. I mean, the Nazis in Brussels, who have again invaded all the country of our friends over there. But anyway, there you go. I don't like politics. I don't like doing predictions on them. I just can't stand politics. It should be done in with. It should be changed and regulated proper. Now then, let's jump forward to page 10. Page 10, again, I predict the future of the European Union. That being, there isn't one. Trust me, this is one that I've carried forward. Nobody believes that Europe would ever crash, and now you can see it is on the verge of crashing after all this time. Now, after several radical changes and failed ideas, this will sound familiar as well. The EU will eventually try to reinvent itself and morph into a similar New Order blueprint. I put that because the European Union is actually a blueprint for the New World Order, which they're now calling the Great Reset, or as we call it, Global Reset. Let me carry on. So they're trying to do it again. They're trying to reinvent themselves, but basically along the same lines, if you know what I mean. And then I've put, but alas and alack for the power mongers, the world will be a different place by then and people will have moved on. Architects of the European Union tried to revive the failed project several times before they realise it's dead in the water. It eventually morphs into something else somewhere down the line, but remains toothless when it comes to the form of power it once held. Well, I think that is like that part of the prediction is fulfilled. Like I said, they are trying to reinvent it, but the world has moved on. Okay, let's jump forward. Page 11. The collapse of the EU was another out there prediction deemed as utter nonsense by others in the so-called know. Oh yes, my friends took a lot of flack for that one as well. But they seem to have gone a little silent now that beginning to see it. Therefore, do not be too quick to dismiss this one. Okay? And that is the dollar, the US dollar, losing its world reserve status. Now, the US dollar is reaching the end of its long reign as a world reserve currency. Its status has been in decline for some time, and we've covered all that in past podcasts. But a new order of financial power is also taking place with the emerging economies. China, for instance, has already overtaken America as the world's strongest economy. Russia, the largest gold reserve, and India as the fastest growing economy. Meanwhile, the West is still approaching its 12th year of recession. Fast forward on to page 11. As long as I'm not reading every damn prediction on every page and just cherry picking them here, it just gives you an idea about the flow of things. It's all no nonsense. Get in there. You know, not 5 pages to explain one prediction. We don't do that. There isn't time to do that. Right, page 11, and likewise, I want to take a note of this one, which it's another one that I've carried for you from an earlier book, and this was about the far too big to fail big tech corporations. These are the out there ones that can never happen, and this means the slow demise of Google and Facebook. That's the heading. Let me read it to you. When I spoke about changes to government power, the transition will be across the board. Big corporations and cartels who think they are too big to fail are also brought into orbit with the rest. So let's deal with the big ones. Google and Facebook may still seem invincible, but don't put any money on either of them because they have peaked and they are ready to slide down the other side of the mountain in 2020. There is more bad news for big tech in this section, including the deep net. I've gone into that, and also concern about artificial intelligence, which they're trying to force on an unsuspecting world, basically. Oh, and indeed, 5G health problems. I'll cover them all. I'll go into all that stuff as well. Now, yeah, Google and Facebook, well, they have been in trouble, and they almost did end when Trump was going to have them recategorised because they were censoring everything, so they're not really social media anymore, they are an editorial. Then as we know, something happened with the Trump campaign and they're back in. So this is still an ongoing prediction, and I have carried it forward from a few years ago when they were absolutely intouchable, but now you're beginning to see the cracks. Don't get me wrong, they are still very powerful, but I think something big is going to happen there within there very, very soon. It's going to be they're all going to be put into place, all them bums in Silicon Valley who think they are the masters of the universe. Okay, page 15, BBC TV, End of Days. This is another one I've carried forward, and now it's getting, people can see what we've been talking about for a long time with their own eyes. So we got more scandals, ego-tripping presenters, poor programming, and a myriad of other revelations mark the beginning of the end for the BBC in its current format. That's the British Broadcasting Corporation, my friends, just in case you don't know, although I call it something else. I doubt we can simply ignore this particular one, my friends, because we are beginning to see this one in real time as well, and we have done for a while. Especially this year, it's all been coming out. Like I said, this mystery virus has been a great. It's been great for exposing people. It's been great for revealing secrets, hasn't it? That's why I like to call it the Great Revealer. He's kind of backfired on the powers that be, or powers soon not to be, whatever you want to call them. Now then, this is one, another one brought forward. Mass mental breakdown. I've spoke about this in the podcast quite a few times. Let me read it to you. Many moons ago, I warned about a strange phenomena where some people would lose touch with reality and turn on the public or anyone who disagrees with the views. Now then, does that sound familiar? Snowflakes, PC, wokeness, which is political correctness on steroids, basically. Now then, that was then. We've seen this before, so let me carry on. A second wave of madness is already underway from late 2019, with the same affected people protesting about things they hardly know anything about. Okay, this was as I was doing the book in 2019, and but there was, I don't think the word snowflake wasn't around then, but we could see all this, and Antifa and BLM, they weren't really around and making anything, but I could see the political correctness getting worse, and basically that was when they started messing around with the internet as well. Now then, let's jump forward to page 16. This is interesting. Run on banks creates run on gold. I know some of you got gold and silver, so I'm going to cover this for you. Let me read it. And by the way, I got this right, the gold right years ago when it was, $1,400. I said it had reached $2,000, which it did. Okay, so I've upgraded this particular prediction because the last one was fulfilled. Gold and silver are still being manipulated downwards, but the trend will end this year, and the precious metals market will reset themselves, with gold reaching over $2,000 to $3,000 per ounce or more. And in brackets I put silver, still a dark horse. In other words, if you do like to get, you're not too sure about paper money and you can't afford gold, go and get silver, because that's going to shock a lot of people when the true price comes. And it's really, really cheap as chips to buy at the moment as well. Now, when I'm talking about 3,000 per ounce or more, if we go back to the gold standard, I think you can see gold going up to $7,000 to $10,000 an ounce, okay? And remember my last time I said about gold reaching 2,000, all these pundits said, no, that's impossible, it'll never happen. Well, it did reach 2,000, and this year it's reached 2,000 again, and then it's manipulated down to about 1,700, but you just watch gold pretty soon. Probably before this year's out, if not early next year, you're going to see that go through the roof. And don't forget, this will be connected with the dollar having to be reset as well. Now then, listen to this. This is interesting, because we didn't know about the global reset thing then. They weren't really pushing it. They've only started pushing it along with the climate change and since this virus thing as well. It's only this year they've been pushing it. So, we can't connect things at the time. We just put what I see, if you know what I mean. So this one, Global Financial Reset 2.0. A shaky year for the West, and the second part of the 2008 crash could be a derivatives bubble bursting, but scandal and fraud play a big part. You think about that. I mentioned the 2000 crash the other day in the podcast, but people have forgot. I got a lot of stick from that, but it happened. And I got so much stick, I started winding people up in the blog. And so I started saying, remember the 8th of September, just to ram it down people's throats, because we're getting so much flack. And I thought, God, they're not bothered about the world ending. But you take the little lifestyle away, and everybody, oh, don't say that, you're scaring me, and you're scaremongering, it's a load of bollocks. Well, it did happen, except I was wrong. It didn't happen on the 8th of September came, and nothing happened, and then I got flooded out with email. Well, I didn't, Pure Web Guy did. Then the 9th, nothing happened, and come the 10th or 11th, bang, it was there on the morning news. Casual as you like, by the way, the banks are shut. Now, that was a big shock then, the crash, but the second part of it was that was a dry run for something bigger down the road, and now we're here. And it's funny, I put it as a global financial reset, and they're calling it the Great Reset or the Global Reset. You've got to try and read between the lines, because when you get this kind of information, it doesn't exist in reality, if you know what I mean. Let's go on to the next one, because this sounds familiar. Global financial scandal. As markets waver, scandal and corruption surface from the highest levels of finance. Shock waves ripple through the global financial sector, crashing many banks and businesses. And then I've put under that gold standard return. Now I think we can see what's happening there, because banks are on the verge of collapse, and that's being done on purpose by the alliance that's bringing the elites down. Remember, it's the elites who own the banks, the banking dynasties. They're the ones who really run the world. So I see a return of the gold standard, which is being hinted about. Like I said, because the Fed has been printing too much money, the dollar will have to be reset. And the only way they can reset it is, everything is to get back to the gold standard, which should never have been taken away in the first place. But there you go. So I'm just saying Western currencies will be forced to return to the gold standard if they want to deal with a growing Asian powerhouse after a downturn in Western currencies, and in brackets, after a possible crash. Well, we're in the middle of a crash in a way, aren't we? It's just that we don't know it yet. We've got all this inflation to deal with and everything. And if you've looked on the shipping traffic, I looked again yesterday, you can see there's hardly anything crossing these mighty oceans. They're all there, botched around coastlines. So all this shortage they're trying to cause it, but they're desperate. That's, like I said, they're like rats in a corner. They'll do anything now to survive. And not forgetting, a lot of the politicians, they're puppets, they'll be going to jail. They're scared to death as well, because they're all part of it. They're all collaborators. They know exactly what's been going on with everything. Okay, and later, and I'll go down there if you're interested. I also cover the fall of the House of Saudi Arabia and a looming situation in China of unrest. This could be the Chinese people turning against the government. Let's skip forward. Page 17. Famous Disappearances. Like this. Okay, something you will notice. In 2020, some famous people and public figures will become conspicuous by their absence from the public domain. Some are dropped from contracts or forced to step down for other reasons, which force sponsors to distance themselves. Next one, you can see what's happening there, with all this Epstein stuff. It's all connected. Decline of Hollywood. The veneer of Hollywood Dream Factory continues to peel away around April and gathers momentum throughout the year. Shocking revelations exposing the hypocrisy of some top actors in the industry send shockwaves throughout the TV and film world, generating great public anger and disgust. Well, we know a lot about that already. We know a lot of them have. Don't forget, this was in 2019. We didn't know all this stuff. But now we've seen it, and I kept mentioning in the podcast, where all these people gone all of a sudden? They're never off TV, and suddenly, they're not even promoting the movies. That is weird. They always pop up. We always see these clips of them promoting the movies, and none of them are. And don't forget, some of these movies were made like a year or 2 years ago. So in other words, some of them are just not around, like Tom Hanks and things like that. I mean, it's all out about him, and he's not once stood up to defend himself, so he's probably not around as well. But anger and disgust, they're the key words. Next one, bad year for the rich and famous. Dark revelations spread through the world of show business into the music industry and beyond, creating reactions that reveal the shocking true personalities of people once admired. Careers are ruined overnight. Let's go on to page 18. Double or triple royal mourning. Now here I'm predicting royal deaths, okay? It's going to be another annus horribilis for the British monarchy, with more rifts and scandals. Now, annus horribilis is Latin for basically it's the Queen's language for telling us that she had a rotten year. That was years ago. I'm mentioning it because I think, no, you haven't seen nothing yet, Queen Lizzie. Nothing. And it looks like I was right. The British royal family will mourn more than one member in 2020. Got that wrong, it was 2021. But listen, and 3 before 2022. These events will mark the beginning of the end for the British monarchy. Of course, the British monarchy, it'll never end according to most people, but now we can see it is being broke up with what's happening. Let's not go into it, because I really don't like any of them. I feel nauseated talking about these creatures. So 3 deaths I'm going to go for there. So we've had Phil the Greek, the Duke of Edinburgh. That's the Queen's consort. I reckon she's next, before the end of 2022. And the other one, it would probably be Andrew. It'll probably be Andrew, because I really do believe he's being arrested now. And I think he's done more than just going with underage girls. I think he's been part of the really satanic stuff. So, he'd get royalty or not. They'd execute him, they'd have to. I do believe that the Queen is in exile at the moment, and I believe that she can't get into any other properties as well. So all this stuff is very interesting. Don't forget, this is from the, 2019. Some of these go back quite a few years. I keep bringing them forward, as I explained, because I am very, very confident that they will happen. And next we go, European nobility in crisis. Well, that's been happening as well. Let me read it to you. A new public focus begins in mid-2020 and gathers momentum over the next 3 years. Scandals relating to sex, financial fraud, and foreign conflict interference behind the scenes cause a great seismic shift in public attitude to European monarchy, structure, and aristocracy throughout the world in general. Well, quite a lot of these have already been arrested, some of what we call the black nobility. They say they're retired and things like that, but again, you're not seeing them around in all the little social magazines that they used to have, all that kind of stuff. And on the same page, I'm not going to go into it, but I also call out the fall of the ruling class, okay? Oh, these idiots, ruling class, give me a break. They won't be ruling nothing very, very soon. Let's go to page 19. Older diseases re-emerge. Oh dear, here we go. Right, although a few small cases have been reported in the past year, they have been vague. We're talking about old diseases here. But there will be a media scares of some old disease outbreaks returning. Typhoid, smallpox, measles, chickenpox, polio. Now, some Asian countries report outbreaks of the bubonic plague. This was a prediction about a long time ago. They said there was bubonic plague. They were at risk of taking hold and spreading into the West. I am not sure if this is a scare kind of tactic to force a new vaccine on people. Beware. Now don't forget, this was before the mystery virus. But I'll go on. Let's not forget the one that has caused plenty of hoo-ha. And yes, folks, as I just said, the mystery virus as it became known. That's what the media called it when it first came, if you remember. They pretended they didn't know what it was, but they damn did. So let me read you that now kind of infamous little prediction. Mystery virus sweeps Europe. Sweeps Europe. A mystery virus sweeps across northern Europe with widespread respiratory problems being reported in Europe and the UK around or during the summer months, June to October, most at risk. You'll have to delve into that one yourself, my friends, because that's all I had on that. I'd covered other ones on the same page. I've covered other diseases, but this one I left till last. I almost didn't put it in the book because it didn't make sense. And look at it. We did get a mystery virus and it's still with us today, allegedly, under one of its many different names. It was a mystery virus, then coronavirus, you know the score, and then it became COVID, and now it's Delta. Right, June of October. Like I said, I'm only having a crack at these timelines. If you go back and do your research, you know, it's kind of so-so. Page 20, let's jump to there. Get something off this one. Okay, the next section also covers natural events and anomalies. Now, there's quite a lot of these guys, so obviously I can only run through a few. Natural events increase in extreme weather, seismic and volcanic activity. I've got here one to watch for 5 volcanic eruptions in 7 to 14 days. That should be in the media, not just going off where we don't know. That'll be in the media. I originally said 3, and I've always waited for them to show 3 volcanoes going off at once, and that was a signal of the proper end times 2012, which I believe 2012 is actually now this year, because it's just lining up that way. Let me carry on. Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico mega storm seasons. South American quakes. Okay, let's take them. South America landmass and offshore will see increased seismic activity and magnitude of quakes. The most affected are countries down the east coast, Argentina, Chile, Bolivia and Peru being most active. Argentina, Chile, Peru, let's have a look at these. I've got here at least 2 8-point quakes near a border. Maybe Chile, but Peru seems to be the most active in 2020. Northern South America will not go unscathed, but suffer more from tremors and freak weather for now, although random volcanic activity will make the news. We'll zip on to one here, Alaska, because I think one of my first predictions up Alaska way was in the Aleutian Islands. That was many, many years ago, and it did get rocked. And again, we've just had another one a few days ago back up there, and we already covered the other Alaskan earthquake, which happened about 2 weeks ago. So let me get this one. Alaska will experience unusual weather anomalies and some undersea quakes affecting some coastal areas and islands, which could also include the Russian coastline. Okay, jump ahead. Now we go to Southeast Asia, weather and seismic anomalies. This is the year when things start to get volatile in this part of the world. More floods, landslides, quakes, seismic activity can be expected as the whole region experiences a period of instability. We actually nailed that one. That's still ongoing, and there is still some big bangs to come from there, trust me. All right, so even though that was maybe 220, now we're in 2021, it's starting again, and we're getting near that kind of that quake season, as I call them. Philippines, yes, the Philippine zone is more freak and extreme weather related, plagued by floods, mudslides and some tremors. Waist high water could suggest parts are actually sinking. And we've seen parts of the Philippines with people walking around waist high water. Indonesia experiences similar to the Philippines, freak weather including typhoons, but with more rain if that's possible. And then I'll go on to cover others. Jakarta, there's that's going to be shaken, probably a volcano or a big earthquake. Now we'll go on to page 21. There are too many quake zones to mention, so guys, I'm going to have to finish this section with one for our friends down under in Oz. I put Australia, more freak weather events and floods. This is update. Now I've put a note here. I released this book early specifically to catch some things that I believe would happen before the official release of the 2020 predictions book. What I did, guys, I just explained. I sent some copies out, to people just so they could bear witness, and then they got the proper copy later on. But before the book was finished, I had to send it out to get witnesses to a few people around the world, just to back me up. Okay, let me carry on. Since then, we've seen record heat wave temperatures. We have, haven't we? We've seen uncontrollable wildfires sweeping down the east coast of Australia. There seems to be a strange offshore and undersea anomaly creating the freak weather somewhere in between Brisbane, the Brisbane coast, towards New Caledonia in the Coral Sea. Put in brackets, not sure if known by the authorities. We still don't know about that one. That's one of those kind of like a little bit vague. It kind of suggests there's some impending big undersea quake coming somewhere in that area. Let's go to page 24. Oh, and believe me, I've got a lot of these weather things because you don't get a lot of people trying to have a crack at earthquakes. They say they're unpredictable and weather, but we seem to do okay, don't we, guys? Anyhow, let's get to 24. Us Election Turmoil. I think this might be pretty squared up. The US Democratic Party is plunged into turmoil as scandals and rumours of covert arrests of some very high-profile members leak into the public domain, and many are linked directly to the Epstein child sex ring. It's funny you should say that because we didn't really know anything about Epstein at the time, We knew that he'd been arrested before, but we didn't know just how many people were actually connected to him. Another note, the Epstein scandal revelations are by no means isolated to any one political party. You see, I'm putting this about politics here, but then we found out that Bill Clinton used to go over to Epstein's Island, didn't he? And other politicians that haven't been named yet. So yes, the Epstein scandal by no means isolated to one particular political party. I mean, one of the biggest exposures of high-profile people in history. I've just put here, the jury is still out on this one, well, at least in official capacity, because, but I think, again, we're getting near that time for these revelations. Next one, I predicted a Trump landslide victory. Well, like I said, the jury's still out on this one as well. The Democrat Party continues to go into meltdown due to new scandalous revelations. Its power diminishes as Americans demonstrate their disgust. That suggests some kind of an awakening, guys. We carry on. When it's over, the party, meaning the Democrats, will be a shadow of its former self, but will start the long process of trying to rebuild public trust with fresh actors. Meanwhile, a Trump election is a whitewash. Well, we've talked about Trump a lot. He's still in power. It is coming out that there was a landslide victory after all. And if you notice, I'm calling the Democrats there. I didn't even know they were called Socialist Democrats at the time. You said I don't really bother with politics, Let's move on. Page 25. We're getting to the end now. Well, to the end of this little demo. Page 25, we start going, things start flowing back to America again then. So I've got United States public unrest. There seems to be a great deal of public unrest in the USA around election time. The protesters are too organised and violent to be ordinary protesters. The timing is not coincidental. Serious injuries and possible deaths are surrounding the unrest. Well, I think we nailed that one, didn't we? You know, Antifa, BLM and all them kind of things, or whatever they're damn called. Next one, US financial uncertainty. America starts to feel the effect of trade wars with China et al. And enters a time of great uncertainty. The US dollar is in deep trouble and may need to be revalued to stay afloat. Okay, so since then we have seen America get in trouble. Then we saw Trump come in and reversed everything, started getting it back healthy again until the election, and then the old mafia got back in and just reversed everything and started giving away America's wealth again. So that is basically ongoing. Then we've got US East Coast quakes. I don't know why I keep getting this about the East Coast and quakes, because like I said, it's not really a big seismic zone, but you know, there are faults there that have not been active for like hundreds of years, some of them. So anyways, I put the US will see a record year for earthquakes along the eastern coast. Summer months could see both New York and Washington DC get shaken by mini quakes, but no serious damage. Power cuts. Again, New York. There are a few major power blackouts due to it, the East Coast and especially the New York zone. Not sure, but they seem to be weather or seismic related. And just to think here, one of my other things, and that I in the other book, the old book, I did say that New York will be flooded. That's why I'm on about these quakes. Could be tsunami, connected to a tsunami or something like that. But we did see New York get flooded due to these heavy rains when the subway system got flooded out. But this is still an ongoing. That must be what I mean about the blackouts, weather related. Anyway, I put a note. There seems to be more power outages across the globe, which suggests the majority will be due to heightened solar activity, causing freak extreme weather and putting Earth's magnetic pole under stress. Next one, internet and communications down. I hint a lot of this stuff in my podcasts. Either due to another pole shift disrupting GPS or solar activity, there could be some serious disruptions to technology in the summer months, particularly August, September, October. Right, that didn't happen in 2020. We're in 2021 now, and we're in August, and there has been some strange goings on with this emergency broadcast test of the Trump alliance. So August, September, October, I think this, well, you know what I've said on my podcast about these months. So, brace yourself. I've also put some of these plasma storms will be strong enough to disrupt power and technology, including the internet going offline for a short time in quite a few countries, including the West. Now, I'm blaming this on plasma storms, but as we know, there's a chance that we will get cut off on purpose. They'll blame it on something else, power cut, solar storm, whatever. Okay, but it will go down and come back up again. Page 28. Let's nick some from here. Trump assassination attempt. Actually, there has been a few attempts on his life, and he's just not been in the media yet, but I reckon they'll be revealed. Anyhow, I'll put 2020 is a dangerous time for Trump, with whispers of assassination by his opponents. If sanctioned, the attempt would be scheduled for August, September. Right, again, we keep getting these months, depending on his status and standing with the American people. That could mean Trump's popularity encounters some difficulty as the year goes on. Otherwise, it will be held back until after he wins the next election, until the perpetrators are taken care of first. Don't write that one off, because like I said, there are a lot of revelations. You can either are building up to saying a lot of things what people don't know. But I do know there have been at least 6 or 7 attempts on his life so far. And like I said, he's not protected by the Secret Service anymore. He's protected by a very professional squad of special service personnel, including snipers and what have you. You'll see all this. Don't worry, it's all been revealed. It's there now if you look for it. Anyway, we've got Washington high-profile arrests. I think we're really coming to that point now, guys. There are some extremely high-profile arrests on the cards in the US, political and the financial system, but not all of them will be made public. However, some will seem to suddenly drop out of the public domain with various reasons given. Right, with the financial service, now we know there's a lot of stuff going on with the Fed. We know there's a lot of these banks being attacked and everything, so that gives you a little bit of clue to that. That's another one that is on the verge of manifesting into reality. It's already started behind the scenes. We go on to the next one. Clinton's accused of serious crimes, but we've known about the crimes for years, but they've been untouchable. Now, I'm putting here, according to me, we're getting close to that time. Let me read it to you. The Clintons became embroiled in past nefarious dealings, and they stand accused of committing or being involved in some serious crimes regarding their Clinton Foundation laundering dirty money from abroad. I think we already know that. I think they have all the evidence, but again, it's not all been revealed yet. Okay, we're getting near the end. You say I'm just cherry picking these guys, so I'm sorry to keep jumping ahead pages and pages, but we're going to go on to 29 now, page 29. And this is for a deeper understanding of the bigger picture that I put in there. And then I'll go on to explain the future about how old school governments enter this period of decline. And I also cover the great change of Western society that's dawning upon the world once we've crossed this strange timeline that we've been plagued with these past 2 years. And then on page 31, I can hardly not mention this one because I've been hinting and pointing this out for some time, but we are now beginning to see it in real time. And remember, most of these armchair experts are fakes who like to spread confusion and fear and disinformation. So beware of them, guys. You've seen them now. They're all popping up on the internet making very, very similar predictions to what you're hearing now. And that's another reason I want to get this out there to more witnesses, just in case they have to, well, they're going to have to be put in their place. There will be, don't worry. But you've got to watch them because some of them are very good con men and con women. Yes, there's a few women about there that are doing this and predicting the future, which they're not. They're actually repeating what we've said ages and ages and ages ago. And they're just rehashing old information as though they've just found out about it. Yeah, all right, we've been talking about this for the past bloody 18, 20 years. Anyways, just be careful with them because a lot of them, they're like Remainers of Brexit. They don't want Brexit. They want to be part of the Nazi machine. They want to be told what to do because they can't think for themselves. Why? Because they're idiots. They're half-wits. That's why. All right. They really want this great reset to happen because it's communism. Everybody has the same then. We all have the same. Nobody has any more than anybody else. Like they say, you won't own anything, but you will be happy. Anyway, like I said, beware the merchants are doing, my friends. I've warned you about this before, and you can see them creeping onto the internet now, rehashing what we have already said. And that is not forecasting the future. It's called plagiarism. That's what it's called. Plagiarism. Now, let's see if you remember, I've talked to this recently. The 2012 end times scare. They all jumped on the bandwagon then. Before that was the millennium bug, the Y2K problem, and all the computers in the world were going to go down. And I said, no, they're not. And then they didn't. Honestly. Some people just like scaremongering. The ghouls. The ghouls. But it is plagiarism at the end of the day. Well, my friends, put this, you can expect them to crawl out of the shadows again in 2020. They have done. But I would say more so this year, so I wouldn't say I got that timeline right. No, they did, because that was when the virus thing started, so they have been coming out since then. But I've just got a feeling that I'm just seeing a big surge of them at the moment. But always remember, they know diddly squat about what they're talking about. So take no heed of the venom that they're going to be spitting out, and trust your common sense and instinct. And the world will indeed appear to have a nervous breakdown, prompting the reappearance of these doom and gloom mongers. Again, ignore them. The end of Nye brigade, you know them. They'll all be out in force fear mongering, especially when things start collapsing. You can see them now. They're just popping up here and there. You've never seen these people before in your life, and yet next minute they're there getting hundreds of thousands of views. I don't even know how they do it, which tells me they are trolls and probably working for the social media. Anyway, who cares? They won't be listened to. So yeah, the fear mongering about the end of the world and all that. And the world for them, guys, is nihilists. Okay, the people who don't believe in anything at all except themselves. They believe that life is totally meaningless, and they reject all spiritual and moral principles, and they could never ever defend the value of human life. That's why they're sociopaths as well. They don't like other human beings. It makes you wonder if some of them even like themselves. I don't think they do. But anyway, therefore, they feel this kind of sense of entitlement to do whatever they want to anyone they want with impunity. But they will feel the wrath of reality in 2020 onwards. And finally, guys, I deal with reality and the metaphysical side, which I combine so I can peek around the corner of time to glimpse what may lie ahead, and where I can try to glean some helpful details. And remember, to be foretold about something is to be forewarned. This isn't a book of fairy stories, my friends. It's something real that is happening to this planet now, that was foretold before a lot of these things, before we even knew about them. And it's what's happening with this planet now and what's likely to happen very soon. So I also hope it makes you realise that we are passing through a very stormy time in human history. And we have done that. We've been doing that for thousands of years. We've gone through these kind of upheavals. But it all happens for a reason. And so, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little sojourn through my little Uncanny Book of Predictions. Uncanny it may be, or uncanny it may not. And like I said, I've only cherry-picked a few to give you an idea of the flow and what lies within to help you decide. Because you can go through this book in about, 15 minutes, and then every time you see something, you just use it as a reference point and have a look. When you see it, you go, where did I hear that before? Look at the book and, there you go. And then that gives you the edge because you know what's coming next, okay? So it is like a little living thing. It's not like a book, a story where you read it and say, I've read it and put it away. This is a handbook. It's like a reference book. It goes on and on and on. It's got a life of its own. But here's the deal. Think carefully before you buy it, because it's a digital download product. Once you've paid for it, it's downloaded to your thing, meaning once you've accessed it, guys, there are no refunds. So please don't come across this, like it's not for me, I want my money back. That's fine after they've read it. I'm sorry, guys, but I've had a lot of trouble with previous freeloaders in the past, those who just want everything for free. And the situation with online fraud is out of control these days. especially since this lockdown scam. And governments have turned a blind eye to all these people getting ripped off, turned a blind eye to cyber theft. So just so you know, I am not taking any chances. I'm laying it down now. Do not buy this book if you think, oh, I'm not sure whether I want it, because you won't get your money back. All right. Basically, what you're doing is donating to the site. I'm more or less giving you this book for a £2.50 donation, if you will. And I just want to tell you as well, when you pay for it, I'm going to tell you how to download it. When you have paid a PayPal, the little link in the description below, PayPal will take you then to a secure link, and it'll open the book for you. Now that'll be on your desktop or on your phone, but what it is, it'll say sign in. Ignore all that stuff. You can just download it to your desktop. If you look in the right hand corner, you'll see an arrow pointing downwards. The sign for download, right? It's right in the top right hand corner. There's no need to sign in, just press that and it'll download. It'll download straight to your phone or your desktop. So if it asks you to sign in or anything, just ignore it. Like I said, just look in the top right, the little arrow that's pointing downwards, and it'll download automatically once you press that. So just ignore all that signing in stuff, okay? Meanwhile, guys, I want to thank you for your support in the past. We have just broke 200,000 downloads, which is not bad, really, considering that we went and shelved this little platform not long ago. So yeah, thanks for your support, and I will see you on the wind.